So thank you everyone for joining this evening and giving up your evenings to join with us. This is our first club development series webinar, which is going to be focusing on governance and leadership. And this is going to be hosted by our club consultant, Jay, because he has expertise within this area and could offer much better advice than any of us. So there is a Q&A box, I believe it's active. So if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, then please feel free to put in your questions and then we can spend a bit of time at the end going through them. And then, as I said, I will go down now and just edit it so you guys can turn on your cameras if you want to. But apart from that, over to you, Jay.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully in a few minutes' time, you'll get your cameras on because it'd be nice to see some faces. I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I know that you all want to be in front of traitors at 8 o'clock for Claudia Winkleman. So I'm the alternative for 1 hour. I'm going to cover a number of different sections. I'm going to ask you to have some pens and paper ready because I'm going to give you some exercises to do just to try it out yourself, because it's one thing talking, but actually to experience some of the things we're going to be talking about, which you can take back to your teams. It's good to do experiential. I will put together some slides to send you, plus some of the exercises, plus some of the documents I refer to, and I'll get that to Izzy and her team tomorrow and make sure that then you can have it if you want it. Won't jack, but it'd just be stuff that would be very useful to you, I think. Some of you might have seen stuff this before. This is a series of development that the Bucks and Berks are putting on, and credit to Izzy and her team doing a whole series of these, and I would recommend them highly because having done the assessment, as some of you have already done, it's actually really interesting to see like that. I've just to assume I'm going to split between a number of different slide sets as I go, but I assume most of you have done assessments and actually looked at the assessment. If not, just have a quick check that you've done your assessment and you're looking at where are we now, what's going on, and then we'll go from there. So have you all done assessments? Yes? With the County FA. Okay, let me just quickly show you what that looks like. It should be you should have had a login, and from the login, you then complete an assessment on your club. It gives you a high-level overview of what the club's about, and then it allows you to take some of these issues forward. And the issue we're going to take forward to start with tonight is around leadership and governance, because that's the first area that you get your marks on. Okay, and this is not a mark in terms of this is a bad club or a good club. This is just giving you a point in time. We know as volunteers working in football, and I've done it myself at Marlow and other clubs, but as a volunteer in football, you don't get time to sit back and reflect. And that's what the idea of these seminars is about, but also when you do the assessment. So this is what the assessment looks like. And if you haven't done it, you just answer the questions, you rate yourself. All of you seen this one before? And if you haven't, please do look at it because it is very important. I'm going to prove to you this is going to be key to future developments, especially around funding in football. That's going to link back over a period of time because people getting to 3-star accredited clubs is going to be key for people like County FAs, going to the FA, going to the Football Foundation. This is what they're looking for. The areas you need to cover, and we're going to cover tonight, is leadership, operational structure, legal structure, standards of governance, and risk management and financial controls. So I'm just going to go through those. I've worked with, in my own world as a club consultant, I've worked with over 32 clubs, mainly in the southeast of England, a couple up north that I do remotely. And so a lot of this is based on not I'm the best person possibly in the history of mankind to know about all these subjects, but actually I've got a lot of experience of where clubs have got it right, how they've done it, how they've become successful. Let's start from here, and I'm going to ask you to do a quick exercise for me. That's a fairground. I want you to think of a fairground, and I want you to think of your club in terms of that, and it does work. I want you just to think, look at that picture and think, what is the best thing about our club? What is the best thing about our club? Just write it down for yourself. I'm not going to ask you to do everything, but where is the best thing about your club? I'm reading some of the questions that come in. Well, you just think about it. What's the best thing? What's the best ride? What's the best experience of your club? Where you could get the assessment, if you write to Harry or Stacey, they will make sure you get your assessments, and Izzy will chase them up tomorrow, I'm sure, but we'll make sure you've all got an assessment. You have a link, it gives you a code, you go in and you just do the assessment. And that's what it starts to base on. And it gives you a scoring, that's how it helps. But let's think about what's the best thing at your club. And if anyone wants to share really quickly what's the best thing at their club, that's fine. But just think it for yourself for a moment. What's the best thing at your club? And if you had your whole board or your whole committee or your whole management structure around the table, and one of the exercises I did with all the coaches around the table was in one club, we sat in a pub, 24 people in a pub. What's the best thing about our club? And we had 20 different answers. And that's a really key point here, because as leadership and governance, which you're all part of, some of you as chair, some of you as on the committee, the key is that you actually, in grassroots football and NLS football, do we have the same picture? Do we all believe the same things? Because usually we're focused on the season, we're dealing with issues around health and safety, we're dealing with safeguarding, we're dealing with lots of other things. What are the issues we have to deal with as a leadership team? Do we have common values? So what's the best thing about a club is a really good question to ask everybody to start thinking about this. And it comes back to a word called values. We're all right so far. This is a key document, okay? What are you trying to change, and what will the future look like? What do you want the future to look like? The most common answer is two answers. Some clubs get to that point where they say, we don't want to change anything. We're very happy where we are. That's okay. That's an equally good answer, because they've got to a stage where they've expanded the teams. They've moved everybody around. They've actually done everything. They've got as many volunteers. And facilities are a stretch, as we know, all around Bucks and Berks, always a stretch to find more training pitches, and have said, actually, we're really happy with what we're doing. Other people have got a vision of the future and say, we want to do this, and equally valid. But these questions I will send you. I'll send over to Izzy to make sure you get them, because these are the questions when I go in as a club consultant. And what club consultants, we've been doing this for 7 years in clubs all over the country, over 1,000 clubs now, was actually just to get people to think about these questions, to sit back. Why is it going to be successful if we make changes? And everyone says to us, want a 3G pitch. Here's a simple example. We want a 3G pitch. It's the most common thing we're asked for. And my answer is, how are your finances? Are you geared up for a 3G pitch? Forget the local plan and everything else, but are you ready for a 3G pitch? Because it actually drains your resources. It's a considerable sum of money, and you don't have control over it, because the Football Foundation will assess you and say you've got to give 20% of your time on the 3G pitch to other clubs, which is absolutely fine. That's the way it works, because that's why they fund them. But let's get started here. And just take one of these questions at the moment. So you've done the first one. What's the good thing? What do you want the future to look like? And this is, again, you're not going to have to share this. This is just for you to think about. If you had a club consultant come in and I said to you, what's your top 3 priorities? What would they be for you? And again, take this question back to your committee and do the same exercise there. What are the top 3 priorities? And it's not the 3 loudest voices in the room. It's actually, what's the 3 priorities you all agree on? And very few clubs actually have got this sussed and ready. Have a think about it for yourselves, just for a moment. What would you say the top 3 priorities are? If anyone wants to put anything in the chat about their top 3 priorities, it would just be interesting to see. Yep. Thank you, Martin. Let me take that one as a simple example. The implications, as we know, those who have done it, thank you. Those who are doing it, great, a pathway. So your first point of contact is talk to Izzy. That's what she does. So have you got a good relationship with the County FA? Have you had that discussion with the County FA so they can help you with their expertise in how do you develop pathways. They've got expertise, and Izzy can tap into the Football Association and Lucy and all the teams at the Football Association. What's working well? How do you do it? What's the implications of doing it? How many coaches will you need? What will you need to do differently, possibly with your changing rooms? Financially stability, I'm going to come back to. That's a couple of you put there. That's very key to this whole process. How to register your club as a legal entity. I'll do that in a second for you. Alignment on grassroots values, our core values. Okay, I will cover all those as we go. I apologise. Let's go legal structures. You do not look at legal structures until you've got a very clear plan of where you're trying to take the club, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because quite often people will talk about there's only a certain number of structures you can use. I'm going to show you a really good document, and I'm going to flip to a document just for a second. And if you haven't seen this document, I will make sure this is with you tomorrow. Hold on. So I'm moving between slides and thing because I'm just responding to where you are. Let me just show you this. And again, if you could just put a thumbs up, because I can't look at the things like that. If you can see that document, yeah? Can you see that document? Club structures. It's a guide to club structures for the National League system and other football clubs. That is grassroots, but it says that as well. This is by an organisation called Muckle, who the FA employed a few years ago. Muckle are experts in football. They really, really like football. They know football. They know about structures. And it is a complex area. So if you'd like this booklet, again, as you're getting your assessment, it's not a legal document. All I'm going to say to you is this is just giving you some ideas about all the different structures there are. And I'm going to talk through unincorporated associations with you in a bit more detail in a moment. But it gives you a background. You need to take legal advice before you do anything. You need to take legal advice either from possibly a solicitor or a legal person you have within the club, who might be a parent. I'm sure you might find one of those every now and again, which are always very helpful. But actually getting legal advice is very important here, because getting this wrong takes a long time to unpick. I'm going to look at unincorporated associations in particular in a moment, because that's quite important, especially to grassroots clubs. But this gives you a background. It's not in legalese, it's got a lot of pictures in, but it gives you all the backgrounds, the advantages, the disadvantages around particular areas, and companies limited, all these different trades. A lot of football clubs become CICs, some become CIOs, and there's all whole implication of this. But the first thing to understand is, what do we want to be as a club going forward? So you do your club assessment, and from that you can have some time with some of them from the county FA, and sometimes myself, who will just come and talk about a business plan. What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to get to? Because that becomes then what is actually the right structure for this club going forward. Because it might be that you change structure again in a couple of years' time or anything else. So we'll have a look at that. So that booklet, would you like that booklet generally? Just thumb up it again if you haven't seen it. I'll make sure that gets to you as well. Okay. Are we all right so far? Again, I haven't got any response thing apart from thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. Being more inclusive, develop a club beyond primarily just me. Yeah, Paul, I have so much sympathy for people who write things like that, because that's a key one. So I will pick up organisation structure. Okay, let's look at legal structure from another aspect and trying to show you how complex it can get. So this is a legal structure slide. What is the legal structure right for your club? And this again is produced by Muckles, by lawyers. I'm not a lawyer, so I will not advise on this area. But it starts to ask you questions about your tax status, your trading activities, your recommendations, what might be possible. And that links to this booklet. It's really good to know some background, but again, I say to you, please get legal advice on this. Sadly, a few years ago, that the FA used to give the county FA's Muckles time and the club's time, but it doesn't do that anymore, which is a shame, because I found that really valuable. We used to get a few £1,000 worth of free legal advice. But again, Buckles are experts in the field, but get a quote from every lawyer, because lawyers can get very expensive, but you need someone with experience of football or the charity sector. But you need to have some background in this. So legal structures, but come out of the business plan. They don't become before the business plan. They come out of the business plan. And I just want to show you about unincorporated associations. So I'm just going to flip. I'm sorry I'm flipping, but it's important because I'm trying to answer your questions that you've thrown up. Let me show you why. If any of you are unincorporated associations, I just really want to get to you very quickly now. Okay, because there's a legal case which has changed the world quite considerably in this area. So this is what the club landscape looks like at the moment. Okay, there's 16,000 football clubs. There's more teams being affiliated, but the actual number of clubs is declining. There's much more teams, and continuous trend over half of football will be played with 20 teams or more by the end of 2028. Okay, this was done a few years ago and it's coming true. It wasn't done in 2016. This was done in about 2024. So coming embedded with their community, providing football and many social outcomes. There's definitely a move where the clubs are becoming more community interest companies because they're producing lots more interest. So someone said, what's a thriving sustainable club? Again, I just want to check you can see these slides okay. So a thriving sustainable club has got a progressive governance and legal structure, has an effective workforce and leadership, has financial accountability, facility management, and then becomes a thriving club where it has football for male, female and disabled players, coach recruitment and development, particularly development. And again, your county FA has got a club development officer, a coach development officer. Tap into that resource. That's a resource that's open for you, and they do it time and time again. You have to tap more into the county FAs because it will benefit you. Community engagement and partnerships is quite key, and a strong identity, marketing, communications. And again, I'll come back to that as we go. But let me just show you around club structures and governance. I'm not going to ask any of you to tell me if you're unincorporated. I did this presentation back in 2024 because it changed. So there are clubs out there, and some of you may be included, so I'm just going to do it. And if we come across other clubs, do warn them of this. So there are people who are just, clubs that set up for the really good reasons. There's nothing against the people, the reason you've done it. You're set up to say kids can play football, boys, girls, and everything. It's fantastic. But legally, you can't hold property or enter into contracts in its own name because you don't technically legally exist. Now, you might be signing contracts or various other things in personal names, but there's a reason not to do it, because committee members and holding trustees are each exposed to risk of unlimited personal liability. And I'll show you the case. Okay, because insurance, if you haven't got insurance, check that out, will only carry certain risks. And this is the case, which is Davis versus Barnes, Webster and Sons. And it was a building contract. It was signed on behalf of the club by an unincorporated club, by the treasurer, witnessed by the president. The club didn't have the funds, and the builders pursued the president personally for unpaid fees of £148,000. And they were successful in their claim. Okay. And that's now law. Until if there was an appeal or someone else run a case, but that's the law. If you're not a corporated club, and it's not about football, this particularly, or anything, it could be hockey clubs, it could be anything, but this is a football club. But actually, if we're not incorporated, we need to get incorporated into some new format. So again, if you don't have incorporation, look at the booklet you're going to be sent out and start thinking about what sort of club are we going to be, what's a simple way of incorporating. And there are simple ways of being incorporated. There's guide in there, takes you through the process of being incorporated, because these are some of the questions you'd be asking yourself. Do we hold a leasehold property? Do we employ staff? A lot of us don't. We have a lot of volunteers. Do we have any loans? Do we have any contracts involving significant risk? And we've considered all the risks. Tax and legal advice, always to take proper tax advice here, legal advice, and that should include tax advice. But incorporating is key. And I just say it because there are still clubs out there I know are not incorporated. And that's nothing to do with the county FA and the assessment process, which is about 2-star, 3-star accreditation. This is about being set up as a proper charitable company, whatever you want to set yourself up as. It's not hugely expensive. I just want to say that the legal advice will be is the piece that will sometimes do it. But some of these things you can actually do yourself. A CIO, for example, if you decided to do that, you could actually do that online yourselves. You don't need to get people, but you need the legal advice to decide, is that the right place for us to be, what we need to be. So on legal structures, that's the area I want you just to be really aware of. Be aware of that case. And if you're not incorporated, if you're running as an unincorporated organisation, you just need to have a look at your legal structure and come back and say, hold on, have we got this right or not? And get some legal advice, or again, ask the questions. Okay. Is that clear for everybody? Can you just nod, thumbs up? Is that all nice and clear? I'm not trying to get into be legalistic, but it is that worries me a lot. That worries me a lot. The other thing that I often find in clubs is their insurance policies are not fit for purpose. They're not got a right insurance policy, and you should have an insurance policy of being an incorporated club. You should have an insurance policy that covers the liability of any of your directors and your trustees, or however you're structured. You should make sure it's covered the legal liability of them, and make sure that they don't have any personal liability. That's a pretty standard way of making sure it's covered. So please go back and check that one for me, because that would be I'd like to know that's all covered off in your area. Okay, so guide to legal structure, look at your incorporation, but go back to this question about where do we want to be? What sort of organisation do we want to be? Okay. Let's move to another area. Let's move to a different area. And again, this is to give you a flavour rather than to tell you everything about legal structures and everything. It's just give you a flavour of some of the areas you as a committee and leadership need to be considering. So I'll send you this one as well, this slide here. What are the known barriers to how do you see the club sustaining its ambition? Sustainability is a problem for grassroots clubs, and it's for NLS clubs and everybody else outside the Premiership, to be frank. Sustainability is an issue. And the issue is that usually, and again, when I say usually, when I was at Marlow, working at Marlow for 9 years, in same roles as you guys do, I didn't do it any different. Okay, I looked at the season. I looked at the end of the season and I thought, yeah, we've got a football tournament there. That will fill the gap. We'll do the football tournament. And then, when you get to things like COVID and suddenly it's not there, that has a big effect upon a club. Okay. If you want to be structured, one of the things that we always say for financial stability, and again, the people who run the finances of football clubs in grassroots, I have a lot of admiration for. They do a really good job. Again, they're volunteers as well. But it's having a 3-year view of where we're trying to get to, not just as a organisation, as a football club, but also in our financials. And very few football clubs actually project forward 3 years. You might say, well, we're guesstimating what might happen. But if you want to talk to the County FA and the Football Foundation about facilities and a 3G pitch, they're going to ask you 2 questions. The first question is, have you got some funds to contribute towards it, or can you raise some funds to contribute towards it? Because that's a requirement. The second question they're going to ask you is, can you maintain the pitch ongoing? Because every year you're going to need something like £10,000 going into a sinking fund, because in 10 years' time, that pitch will need replacing. You'll be coming back for more. So you have to have a 3-year view of your finances. Financial stability also comes down to how many grants you can get, how many funds you can get. If you haven't hit Barclays Bank for £1,000 a year, which is the easiest fund in the world to get, you're missing out, because they do one a year and you just click and you get £1,000 and they just send it to you. So, but if you haven't got a funding plan, your financial stability, you haven't got things around all the different things. And the problem we have in football is there are a lot of funds out there, like Howdens and all these other funds, which you're accessible to. We don't have the time to fill them all in all the time, and we miss the deadline dates. But actually having a funding plan will be quite helpful. So things to think about. What is it what you want to achieve? Where do you see your organisation? Where's it come from? I won't worry about 50 years time, but some people like to think right out because they're looking at long-term leases. Where are you going to get the funding from? So there are grant makers, there are trading, there's some people are using charity shops. They use, there is a club out there, not in Bucks and Berks, another area, does a pop-up charity shop once a year. Goes to the local council, takes all the football boots, gets them all cleaned up, loads of football shirts, goes into the community and just sells them all for like £2 and like that to try and help the community out. But actually, it raises itself like £5,000 a year, and its profile is really good. Dead simple. Okay, simple things they can do. Do you want to be a charity? That's an interesting thing. Some people think, yeah, we should be a charity. But think about that. That's a key one, because the difference between a charity and a community interest company is quite considerable. And actually, you're probably doing some of the same things. So there are clubs out there who do food banks and let the food bank run out of their club, etc., or are involved in the local community. And sometimes they're more suited to CIC, sometimes to charity. But it's knowing who you want to be. And again, think about, if you're not registered at the moment, we're changing, who's going to be the directors, who's going to be the actual people, who's going to be the appointed trustees. Okay. Questions to think about are this, where do you want to see the organisation in 5 and 10 years time? And I know when I come onto these seminars and webinars, etc., if I ask the question, how many of you have got a business plan written down, which is a 4-page, 5-page business plan, I know how many answers we get. Okay, so I'm not asking the question. That's key. And again, I can help you when you've done your assessment. We can help you do those. They're really quick to do, because what it is, if you get the committee, you've all got the ideas in your head. You already know half the stuff you want to do. So I did a football club last night. Their business plan went out by about 10 o'clock this morning. It took me about an hour and a half, because the club already knows what he wants to do, just wanted it structured in a certain way. So future is important. Understanding your future helps you then back to what is the right legal and structure for your club. And then it moves you into areas like this, vision and things. I want to go the other way around. I'll do this one first. If you want to guess who the football club is at the top here, this is actually on their website. Won't be measured in the number of trophies it wins, but also by the impact. I write down meaningless Premiership rubbish because it's a Premiership club. Anyone like to guess the club? You get an award if you get it. It's Man United. They don't worry about trophies, apparently. Well, I know they haven't won anything for ages, but I'm a Wickham fan, so I don't care. But it's nothing. It's a meaningless statement, because they don't sack their managers if they go, our community impact's been absolutely fantastic. It's not meaningful. Look at the vision here of a rugby club, quite a well-known rugby club. It's dead simple. Create a supportive environment where positive and competitive rugby can be played, enjoyed by all ages, regardless. That fits into a lot of football type works. And this is their other side of it. Strive for excellence on the pitch through our coaching, volunteering, close involvement. Now, people question why we do that. I would say that 95%, if you go to your website as well, have a look at your website and see if it's got a vision on it. And I will take you a guess that 95% of the clubs on this call won't have a vision statement like that, which is quite core to grassroots football, as much as NLS, as much as anywhere else, because it is a business. If you want to be financially stable, we have to slightly be business orientated, but we do it for the love of football. I do it for the love of football as well. But actually having a real key thing, what we're about, and every club I work with has a slightly different, they don't have to use this one, but what's actually it for you? One of the clubs I know has the word inclusive. Someone has asked about the word inclusive. Well, it's an intent. And what they have is in their intent, we are going to be an inclusive club for our community and represent our community. So if their community has got an ethnic mix like this and a female mix like this, they represent that in their coaches, they represent that in the players, they represent that on the board, they represent it across the whole club. And it's quite important to actually understand what you want to be. And people avoid this because we do this at work and it's a 3-day workshop. We don't need it. You'll actually have most of the key words. Again, we can help you with that. But actually just getting a statement that we all agree on is really interesting for a board of management, a board of whatever you call yourselves, management committees, whatever. It's a really interesting exercise to go through because you get everyone on the same page, and then you've got a focus. And then we can look at the coaches who fall out of line and do their own thing because they're not necessarily striving for excellence. There are coaches out there, as we know, who just want to win everything regardless of the effect on anything. And I won't put subs on, I won't let the kids play, I won't do this. We've all got them in our clubs, we've all had them, we've all come across them. It's actually, if we have a set statement, this is what we're about, this starts to permeate across the whole club. And this is values, which I'm going to come back to. But I want you to think about this for me for a second. I'm just going to leave you for 2 minutes. I'm going to be standing here. But think about your core values that you hold for the club. And again, please take this exercise back and do it with your committee. You don't need me to come in and do this. The core values, the key words. Just think of a few key words that really mean something to you. And it might be family involvement. It could be anything. Just take that first one. What's your core values you hold for the club? Just have a think. What's the key words that you want to see every time your club's out there represented, but the players and how they're feeling, the coaches, how they're working? What's the key words? And again, I'd welcome anyone wants to share a couple of words just out of interest. Core values, things that you think are dear to your club. And again, I'm not going to quote back the clubs. They're just interested in the words that come out. Yeah, really good. Yeah. Integrity and honesty are key words that we keep hearing about Mr. Trump, which is words seem to have missed him by. Anyway, love it. You know, see how, I don't know which clubs you're from, so it's okay, but these are great words. Inclusivity, I love that. Praise and encouragement, teamwork, yeah. There's a club that's actually done it because he's just cut and paste that one brilliantly. Thank you, Mr. Chair or Mrs. Chair, whoever you are. But look at the different words, just it's out of interest. It's not different, but it's so different. And if you have your committee sitting around the table doing this, and that the chair there of whichever club that is has done that exercise, you've got something you can build off, because if you've got it set out, if you've got it set in front of you, you can build from there and then go from there. And actually, we often talk about our club and what is our club, and our club's about, we love it, all this and that. And we do, we love our clubs. AC, we're dedicated to providing a nurturing, inclusive, I love that one. AC, sorry, an inclusive platform for youth football, not only athletic development, but also the values of teamwork, sportsmanship, and community engagement, creating an environment where every player, regardless, can discover the joy of the game. I love the word joy. A lot of you got that word. Having that intent deals with a lot of problems. First of all, if you ever get to a football foundation or to a bid grant, you need that in your grants. You need that in your bids, especially if you're going to go for more significant money at 20,000 range. You need to have a very clear message. This is who we're about and what we're about. And it needs to be common across the club. It's also when you're trying to get your coaches on board, this is what we're about. This is who we are. This is the way we want to work. It's a very set statement from the top. This is the way we are. This is what we're about. I love that. All those sharings are great. And I think integrity, honesty is a real interesting one, isn't it? A community, joy, achievement. The word joy is a great word. That's one of my favourite words. This is a little club called FC Barcelona. You might have heard of them. And it's really interesting. If you ever you're lucky enough to go out to Barcelona, they have a netball team, football teams. They have everything. You know, but boy, it's more than a football. They don't call themselves a football club. They call themselves more than a football club. It's more than that. These are evident through the way they are, the way they interact with the press, the way they be, the way they live their sports, the way they work with each other. They keep those values. These are their values. Their 5 principal values define the spirit of FC Barcelona. And it's really interesting to, again, this exercise is not something where you need a consultant or a county FA. This is something to sit down and really have a think through. Because if I do a board meeting, or if I do a board meeting at football, if I do it in the private world, and I ask this question, you get so many different answers, and each answer is equally valid, but actually getting everyone to consolidate and say, yeah, that may, and actually getting those words right are quite important, because it gives you a lift. It gives you a sense of, do you know what, we're more than we realised. And again, what's your dream? What matters to you in the way players behave towards each other? There's the FA standard of how parents should behave. It's things. Michael, you're sharing the beginning of yours. Let's just have a look. Sorry, it's just coming up. If you can see on the chat bar, if you haven't got the chat bar open, you go to the top and you click on the chat if you can't see it. Oh, fall in love with a game. That's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, love it. We all do it because we love the game. It's great. I don't ever think I've ever seen that word in a set statement like that. I don't think I've ever seen the word love. But it's a really good word to use, because we do it because we love the game, don't we? And it is these key questions here, what's the core values? What's the dream for the club? You don't need to do that today. That's something you take back to committee. What matters to you in the way players and parents behave towards each other? What impact do you want to have on a person's life? And what do you want to gather? Call them out and let's create a statement. So that's what I would do as a live exercise in your club. I'll give you that to go away with. Do it with your teams at the top. Again, I've done it with coaches as well. I did it with a group of coaches and then fed it back into the committee. And that was a really interesting exercise, because the committee did it once, the coaches did it, and actually it all meshed together absolutely brilliantly. So this is what you've got to do from today. You've got to do that assessment with your management team. It's good to do it with a group of you. It's not a test. So Izzy doesn't come back and say, oh, you've got a good mark or a bad mark. It's to give you that sit back moment where you look at your club and say, where are we up to? And then where do we want to get to? The visions and values challenge I've just given you. Again, I'll send you the slide. I'm sorry they're not, beautiful slides. I just do them myself. So I'm not, but then you look at that vision of value and you say, is it embedded in everything we do? Coaching, website. Most clubs don't have anything about where we're going as a team. They have all their policies on, but in your policies, does it reference the vision and values? When you're trying to recruit volunteers, and that's another seminar, I think next month or the month after, the county are doing for you. An ethos, all our plans and the way we get rid of coaches who don't want to follow and replace them. And that is another common issue that people bring to me, and they go, we've got some rogue coaches. And I don't mean they're horrible people. They're just not following what we're trying to do as a club. And I only have one piece of advice, is first of all, talk to the coach development officer at the county. And my other second piece of advice is, if you ain't going to change them, get rid of them and plan their exit, because they're going to bring your club down. And if you get someone and you're sitting at a board meeting, or you're sitting at a management meeting or anything else, and the name of the same coach comes up 3 times in over 3 meetings, they're starting to drain the club and they're starting to do their own thing. So when I was at Marlow, we had a coach who decided he didn't want to have kids from the local area of High Wycombe, where I live, and Marlow. He didn't want to have local kids. He went out and recruited kids from all over the place, the best possible footballers, and he won more trophies than anybody else in the club. But the disruption he caused, because he would not use local kids, was horrendous. And it got out of hand. So I learned from example of what a rogue coach can do. And actually it became so divisive. Meetings were there was almost punch-ups going on in meetings. And it's one of those things where you just need to say, this is the way we are. This is our visions. This is our values. This is the way we want to coach. And we want everyone to fight. And 90% of people will, but there's always 1 or 2 who will try and do it their own way. If you let them fester within your organisation, that's not good leadership. It's not good leadership, I'm sorry, because it doesn't help you long term. Okay. Are we all right so far? My wife had said 40 minutes of me is enough for anybody. She's probably right. Okay, I'm going to try and tackle some other things that came up there. And I do love those statements as well. It is worth looking at those words and taking them back. And the statement of from Jennifer and the one from Michael, the more complete one, and the one from the chair there, they're really good. If you can just quickly screen grab them yourselves, they're really good examples of what, what other clubs are doing. You don't want to try and be them, but they're really good. Enjoyment comes first, That's brilliant, isn't it? Because it is enjoyment. It should be enjoyment. But then what's the key thing about football? Well, actually, we give kids that other people, sometimes ignore. We give kids a chance to become part of a team. We give kids to do loads of stuff. So now I'm going to just tackle two of the questions that came up. I'm just trying to find slides and respond to you. Okay, okay. So this is about organisation structure. Okay, again, slides should be up. Just checking you can see. Stephen, because you're right in front of me. Can you put your thumb up if you can see the slide? Thank you, Stephen. Sorry, you're just right in front of. You're the top of the list in front of me. Thank you. Hello, Matt. You got someone behind you as well. I can see Abingdon. That's good. Yeah, you don't keep an eye on you. When I talk to kids, they always run away. So this is a very interesting exercise. So you might look at this and think, I'll try and blow it up so you can see it a bit better. You might look at this and think, this is a huge club. Okay. This is a club probably the same size as you. Their challenge was, and I won't put their name up because they wouldn't mind me saying it, but it was a brilliant piece of work that they did, not me. They did this piece of work. Their challenge to me when I first got there was, we struggle with volunteers. We're struggling to recruit volunteers. And this is where the word organisation structure comes in, because what they did was broke out what are all the key roles. So this is where they were, looking at all the different groups, and we got this and we got these roles and this roles, and they sat, and you can do this on, you can use the things on Outlook, etc. Let me just get rid of that. But they went through a few iterations of different ideas and came towards this. And this is where people say we're struggling with volunteers, because actually this is a club with about 34 teams. Okay, looks like it's got more than 34 teams, but they mapped it out. And most clubs, and again, I understand why, but don't actually sit there and map it all out and actually look at it take all the names out, take all the emotion out of who's which place, and actually girls football, we should have a representative on the board. We should have someone for mixed football, for welfare, facilities, treasurer, communication. So what do we want the ball to look like? We're going to have a volunteer manager. We need someone to look after the volunteers. They're all volunteers. But actually they started to map out, what does it look like to be the club we are now, and where do we have gaps? And this, a lot of the blue bits, and the yellow bits and everything else was where they had gaps. They had a lot of gaps. I'm not going to show all the gap piece. That's not right to show that bit, but I could show you this bit. And they started to add things down here. Bookkeeping. Actually, we should have someone who's got a bit of legal knowledge. And this is where they started to put together their organisation structure. And when people talk to me about organisation structure, I say map it right out on you can get it on PowerPoint or any of those. Map out an organisation thing. You find it up here somewhere, and insert. You can get a document with an organisation structure in. You start mapping out all the different reps we have, all the different. So we've got coaches here, we've got age group leads there, we've got age group leads there, and actually by looking at it and then working out your gaps, you then start to have a plan of where you're going. Does that make sense? Because what we try and do as football, within the football world, is we try and do it in our heads. And in my real world, you have to sit there. If you're going to change an organisation structure, or you're going to improve your organisation structure, most clubs say to me, we need more volunteers, but aren't really clear on what the volunteer is. And if you're clear on what a volunteer is and what role you want, then you're looking at this structure and saying, actually, we want someone to do here. They want someone to do graphic design. They need them for about 1 hour a month. And that's different to asking someone to be a volunteer, which is the most scary word in the world, because you think that's going to be like 3 hours a week. Actually, we just need 1 hour a month for someone just to look at this and look at that for us. And they started to map these roles out. And what they also did was job descriptions. And again, I've got a set of those from Rugby Football Club. That's Rugby Borough up in the Midlands. They did a whole set of job descriptions for all the, again, if you would like them, please do ask. If you let us know, we will just send it out to you. But they did job description for all the key roles to see where their gaps were. And it might sound very corporate. It might sound, well, this isn't football. This is not why we do it. This is where people get into problems about sustainability, because then someone leaves the club or someone says, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm fed up with it. And actually, then what happens? It's just a real pain because you don't know, suddenly you've got a gap, you've got another gap. And if you think to yourself, what happens if it happens to someone senior in our club suddenly walks away, what happens? There are sad stories and good stories about people not being well and everything else, but there's also sad stories where people just got fed up and said, you know what, I've had enough of it, and walk away, and they actually are the key person, and the clubs start to fold around them. So again, sustainability comes from good structure, from knowing what you've got, knowing what you need, and mapping it out, and then trying to fill the gaps around it. So that's organisation structure linked with sustainability. Is that okay? Okay. People don't do this exercise because they think it's well, we know we got a gap here. We know we've got a gap here. Try and do the exercise. This club did the exercise. So it's got 30. I think it's got 34 teams total, but actually did the whole exercise of where we want to get to. They weren't trying to be 60 clubs, 60 teams or anything else. They wanted to be about 34, 38. They wanted to create a better girls' pathway, but they also put the head of girls' football straight on their board, which again is so unusual and so necessary. It should be on the board. If you've got someone up there doing mixed football, doing the men's football, whatever, they should all be on the board because they're representing a key part of your club. So that's organisation structure. Please take that back, look at that. We need to do organisation. We need to have a look at the gaps. We need to map out where we've got gaps. And what, again, clubs, there's a really, I think it's, I can't tell you when it is, Izzy would know, but that you've been invited to another conversation around coaches and volunteers. I think it's on the one. So the coach development manager will be doing that, and then they'll be looking at volunteering. But having your organisation structure there helps you structure where you want to get to. Okay, right. Next question on your list. I'm just trying to follow your lists as you sent them over. Okay, risk management. Oh gosh, yeah. My least favourite subject in the whole world, but I'll try. Okay, luckily I have a document because and I can get you this document as well. This was done by Bluefin Sport, and it's a guide to risk management for grassroots football. They're obviously doing it because it's a really good document. I haven't found a better one than this. Assessing your risks and managing your risks is key in any organisation. So if any of you work in a corporate organisation or a charity, they will have a risk management structure. And I would ask them to send you a copy of what they use, the template, because you can use a template and you can adapt it to what you have. This is what you're looking to do. Let me just go right to the end of this document. This is a really good document in actual fact. You're identifying hazards and you're rating them. That's all risk management is. And what you're rating them at is, oh, no, that's not what I want. That's a setup. That's quite interesting here. That's a setup for a fireworks display, but actually works equally well for a tournament, a football tournament, because I've used it myself. What you rate a hazard by is you work about the likelihood of it happening. And let's take one, football post falling down. Okay, football post falling down. The likelihood of it happening is quite low, but the impact of it is very high. So you measure the impact times I'm just trying to see if it's here. The impact times the hazard. What's the chances of it happening? So actually, the chance of it are low, but actually it's high. So you give it 5 points. It's in here somewhere. You give it 5 points for the impact it would have out of 5. chance of it happening are probably 1 or 2. But then you have to check it and say, well, why have we rated it 1 or 2? Why have we rated it so low? Have we checked that everything's all right? How often do we do maintenance checks on the football post? How are we doing that? Where are we recording it in case there was a problem? So the duty of care you hold is very important, but actually then rating it. The government website will give you a free risk management template to use, which is just, if you go to government risk assessment, they do you a free risk assessment template, but all it says is what's the area, what's the hazard, what's the likelihood of it happening, and you score it. And your highest scored ones are the ones you need to address quickly. So again, within your organization, if you work for a corporate organization, you'll have one of these risk management, and you can make one of those work for you. Just ask them for the template. But this document will give you the background of the things you really should be thinking about, particularly as clubs and associations. You know, do your coaches make sure, you know, we always know the coaches go out and they do, you know, coaches are really good. They go out, they check the pitches, make sure there's no dog poo on there, you know, glass and everything else. Well, that's managing a risk. That's making sure the risk assessment is done. You know, a risk is a kid could fall over and hit the glass, you know, on the glass if you're on a public park. But what happens when the coach turns up late and doesn't get a chance to check the pitch and you just start playing? Suddenly your risk level goes up a lot. So you just need to have a think through, and as a management team, you need to have done a risk assessment once a year, just look at all your risks, and then you put in plans to mitigate the highest risk areas. So again, I'll send that out to you to have a read. When you've done the assessment, if you mark yourself and say we are not good at risk assessment, low, then we will come back and target you directly, because some clubs are very good at it and some struggle with it. Does that make sense? Good. Right, let me just ask you, are there any questions at this stage? Any more questions? I'm trying to just click up the chat box, making sure. So we've got values we've hit. Hold on. The assessment you've hit. So Izzy will make sure you get all the assessments and make sure you do that. Okay. And you'll get the link tomorrow. The assessment should take you about, you know, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour if you're sitting around as a team thinking about it. You know, if 1 or 2 people do it, you can do it quicker, but you don't necessarily get the best result because you don't have the debate. Then you look at your values and your vision. Then you go from your vision and your values into your organization structure and into your financial sustainability starts to emerge from that. And these statements here are the key. You know, given the importance of getting the regular, is it seems saying the FA does not provide free subsidised advice? Michael, yeah, they used to, they don't anymore, and it is a shame. It's a great shame, and we kicked up big fuss on that because it was a shame the FA doesn't provide it. If you go to Muckles, you know, they're expensive. They're probably about 4,000 or 5,000 quid, but they're very, very good. Always remember, you know, it's a lot of money to lay out, but only go to them when you're in that particular time. And the help is they are expensive because they are one of the best. Finding enthusiastic parents is definitely the way to go on that one. Okay, so I've covered operational structures, legal structures, risk management, a little bit about financial planning, and that's as far as I was going to go today, because I don't want to bore you even more. Thank you, Paul. Impact times likelihood to assess the risk, take away your mitigation, residual risk. That's right. You can get a spreadsheet with that on if you look on site. But again, if you've got an organization, you're in a company, they'll have a particular thing. The coaches, Izzy is put up online as well. The coach development, coaches and volunteers, looking at coach development. And it is an area, again, I say in clubs, when you do the assessment, people are actually really good at recruiting. You've got some really good coaches and good volunteers. It's actually saying, what can we do more for those volunteers? What could we do to celebrate those volunteers? And what can we do as well with the coaches? How can we develop them further? And again, Izzy's got a colleague who's really good at coach development. Izzy an expert on girls football and women's football. Again, tap into this resource in the county. You know, I'm not paid by the county, by the way, but it's important because a lot of the clubs I come across, again, yesterday, another example, they're struggling with an issue. And I went, well, the county will know that. And the county guy was sitting there and we solved the issue in about 10 minutes because he knew all about it. So tap into this resource, girls football. If you've got 2 or 3 teams, you haven't got a pathway because you find it difficult to recruit girls. Well, Izzy will know that's a problem. She knows that's a problem. She knows how other clubs have done it and then why are other clubs struggling. You're not the only club struggling. And good talking to other clubs sometimes, because other clubs go to you, yeah, we're having the same problem. And actually, 2 heads are better than 1. And then Izzy throwing in there as well, actually, we can do this. And then we can talk to Lucy at the FA and we can get some more expertise for you. It's about having a real intent in a business plan. Okay. Thank you, Paul Gutteridge. That was really good. That's, if you can see that in the chat bar, that's the assessment of way to do the residual risk. I don't have a risk assessment particularly. I don't think the county does particularly a risk assessment thing. But again, as I say, you can get it off the government website. If you type in government risk assessment, health and safety, it comes up with guides. You don't want to get too complicated on it. This guide will send out to you. This is nice and simple, gives you some background, why you do it, a safe playing environment. A lot of you will be doing 90% of this already, and that's the credit. You're really good. You're getting it done. It's happening. But actually, sometimes just to make sure you've actually got a document, because if I walk in, I would be saying to you, where's your risk management document? And you go, oh, well, we're managing the risks, are you? And my final one for you is always the safeguarding policy. And I always make this near the end of many of my talks. The safeguarding policy is my bête noire from personal experience over the years. And I have walked on to now 2 clubs where they have got really good safeguarding policies, excellent safeguarding policies. I walk on, if you look at my age, I am a typical profile of a person you'd want to challenge, okay? I walk in, I have my FA top on, I have my FA coat on, I walk around the pitches and no one challenges me. That is a serious issue that I always say to clubs, it's not having a go, and I don't go and have a go at them. I just say, you should challenge me, because I am a profile of the person you want to bloody avoid. I put an FA coat on, it look like I'm a formal. That's how people do it. That's how people have always bucked the system. That's how paedophiles work. They know how to do that. They're clever people. They're not thick. They know how to work the systems. So when you have a policy, make sure it's implemented, and just make sure people are reminded occasionally to make sure they're challenging. And I'm sure you are 90% of the time, but I've done 2 clubs recently when I've just gone in. I was actually going down to see the chairman and I just got in there early and I thought I'll walk around the pitches because I want to be challenged. I want people to say to me, who are you? Can you prove who you are? I want people just to challenge me. And I wasn't challenged twice. Safeguarding policy in both those clubs are excellent, brilliantly written, but not being applied. And again, I'll just bring that to your attention as a leadership team. Just have a think about it. I'm not having a go, but it's a personal experience of mine that I've had years ago, that I know how bad this could be. I know how bad this could be. So just make sure you're protecting yourselves all the time around that, if you would. That's good leadership. You're doing a great job, all of you. I mean that. I get such a privilege to do what I do. I've been doing it 7 years in and out of clubs, and it's such a privilege to go into a club and to see they're doing, and you see the kids developing, you see them coming through and everything else. And the difference it makes to those kids is not about football. It's about inclusion. It's about feeling good. It's about all the other things that you see. And we do measurements of that as well across the UK. And it's fascinating to see the social impact, obesity, health rates, school attendance improves because they're doing a football team, and they know if they don't go to school, like this could impact their football. It's brilliant. We're not just football. We're actually impacting the community in a positive way in a really bad world sometimes. So thank you for all you do, because I think that's incredible what you do. I know you put loads of hours in, and I'm not going to keep you beyond this because I think an hour is enough of me. Are there any final questions? And I'll let you all go and see how Claudia's getting on. Any final questions? If you can all do the assessments for Izzy, Harry and Stacey, okay, if you can do the assessment for them, that triggers a lot of things and will help you. Only had one person for 2 weeks ago. He works shifts, so he can only coach midweek. We are based in Slough. Okay, great. Alan, we'll get that to you. Thank you. Listen, thank you for all you do. Appreciate your time. It's really, really nice to meet you all. And I look forward to seeing some of you, because once we've done the assessments, then Izzy can trigger with her team, right, we need some more help here, some more help here. It will really get you going. But thank you. Thank you for all you do for football and for the kids. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Good night, all. Thank you, Izzy.